So I will describe to you an introduction that Mr. Singh, Mr. B.P. Singh and our father were in St. Stephen's College, just joined in the first year of college, and they go off in 1953
the hiking club contingent sitting
Yes,
here.
the hiking club contingent is here. They go off in 1953 to climb Bandarpunch. Courtesy Mr. B.P. Singh meeting Jack Gibson at some school prize distribution function at modern school. Ashok is a modernite as well. And what's interesting about this, and then we'll ask Mr. Singh to respond, is not going to Bandarpunch. Yes, they go to Dehradun and they meet Jack Gibson, they meet Gurdial Singh, wonderful. And Mr. B.P. Singh can tell us about the episode of meeting Jack Gibson and what he does for them. Then they go to Chakrata, which is fine. You go to Chakrata, there's with Hoshar Singh, their valet. But then they spend 2 weeks getting to Osla. 2 weeks walking in the Middle Hills just to go where we would today reach in less than 2 days or 2 days or so. So think of the adventure of 1953 where two young lads, 18 years old, with money earned from writing articles. I think a funding that came from Himachal, which you can remind us of, which later helped found the hiking club at St. Stephen's, and they go off here. So I think it's extraordinary adventure for young people, and we are very lucky that Mr. Singh can be here with us. Leave it to you to describe the recollections as you wish.
Well, after listening to Everest and Nanda Devi, this should seem like a cakewalk. But as he says that we had, I must emphasize this, Hari had about 200 rupees with him, I had about the same amount. And then luckily for us, there was a gentleman who's still around, a very fine person called Veerbhadra Singh, who was the chief minister of Himachal for many years. He loaned us or gave us 250 rupees. So in other words, we had a total of about 600 rupees. And then when we were going, my mother said to me, who's going to carry all your stuff? So I said, well, nobody will carry the stuff ourselves. We carry 60 pounds weight. And she smiled and said, I don't think you each will be able to carry that much. So why don't you take our domestic servant with you? He's from Garhwal. So I summoned him and I said, you know, we are going to this expedition and it's way up in the Garhwal area, and but it means that he's carrying a lot of weight and climbing. So he had the habit of twirling his moustache, and he did that, and he said, Saab, jo marzi, jahan marzi chale jao, मैं आपके साथ जाऊंगा, आपके आगे जाऊंगा, और जितना लोड दे सकते हो दे दो, मैं उसको उठा के ले जाऊंगा. So we were quite pleased about this, and we got him as a sort of porter. Then, as we said, I don't think it took us 2 weeks from Chakrata, but it's a long trip. We bussed up to Chakrata, and it was the time of the year when, I have to mention this, that we didn't see a single person trekking at that time. Throughout our almost 4 weeks in the mountains, we didn't see a single trekker.
But the Doscos did some damage to you, I'm told.
Talking about the Dune School, Hari taught in the Dune School. I think he was the principal.
No, he wasn't the principal. He was a teacher there for 13 years.
The problem with the Dune School was that they had earlier in that particular year tried to climb the Black Peak, and there was a whole group of them, and each individual contributed, or the school contributed, 700 rupees per person. And so that was the kind of, they had cooks and they had tents and they had the works with them. And let me just get back a little bit to the fact that we had one ice axe between the two of us, and nothing else. So we said we'll go to the Dune school and request them to give us some equipment. I had known Jack Gibson earlier. Let's say known, met him. So we went to the Dune school and we borrowed an ice axe, we borrowed a nylon rope and so on and so forth. We even met Gurudev Singh, although Hari in his book mentions him in passing. But there is no question in my mind, and I'll come to that a little later, that if you have school teachers and they are the caliber of Gibson and Gurudev, you have to consider yourself extremely fortunate, because these people not only thorough gentlemen, they were perhaps the most compassionate people that I have ever met, and I'm talking of 67 years ago. Well, we went on this trek and we had lots of ups and downs, and Hari and I both had tempers, and we had fights and this, that and the other, but we had this single determination that we would try and climb the Black Peak. By the time we got to Osla, which was sort of the last village, and it's, I must share this with you, the villagers believed not in the Pandavas, but in the Kauravas. They were worshippers of Duryodhana. So it's one of those areas in the hills, and we know so little about them.
Beautiful temple there. Beautiful temple to there.
Yeah, we didn't have time to go there. But when we got there, we just couldn't get, we needed supplies for the trip, because after that there was no village, no nothing. And everything was ridiculously priced. And we realized that we couldn't afford it. And they said, "जी आप क्या कह रहे हो? वो दून स्कूल की पार्टी आई थी यहाँ पे, वो तो 200 रुपए देते थे कुलियों को, आप क्या दोगे हमको?" We said, "We'll give you $20." Yeah, big laugh. And then Hari mentioned this. I thought that this was getting us nowhere. So I used to be very fond of Shakespeare. So I just rattled off, sitting there and all the kids and the women and men around. I started reciting Shakespeare. And some strange thing happened, that many of these people got their drums and dolkis out. And as I recited Shakespeare, they went bang, bang. And we have, Hari and I are looking at each other and saying, "What's going on here?" Anyway, the result was that we managed to get a coolie, one person. And we got not too many vegetables, but Hari mentions 2 pumpkins, which feature, or 2 or 3 pumpkins, I'm not quite sure. When we started what was the actual going to the base of the mountain, and to be honest, by that time we were already pretty tired out. And we went there, and old Himraj Singh was carrying his load of stuff. So we then carried up the Tormes River to a point. It's very difficult for me to tell you exactly what heights we were in, because we had no meters with us. But this is in the month of September. I have seen photographs in the month of May and June, and the snow is right up to almost to touching the Black Peak's ridge. And here we were, there's no snow at all, except the glaciers from Swargarohini, which is a mountain peak on the left-hand side, which we could see. So then we crossed the moraine of the Bandarpunch glacier and found ourselves in a shepherd's hut. Not a hut, it was a kind of a dugout with
Khadka, he calls it a khadka. Khadka.
With slabs of rock on it. So we made that sort of our base camp. And then Hari doesn't mention this, but then for 2.5 days we had incessant rain and snowfall. And we just, and we ran out of food. I mean, the pumpkin was still there, and Pratap Singh would cook the food, and we would have gulps of tea, and we'd have this pumpkin and chapatis to eat. So finally, when we thought that there's not much time left, we better make an attempt for the summit. And we tried to do that. And but we realized halfway through that we wouldn't be able to make it, so it was pointless. But we carried on walking, and talking of turning back, I have to say this, that I think it was wise on our part. And mind you, we're talking from 27,000 feet to about 16, 17, and maximum 18,000 feet. And because if we had carried on for another 2 hours, it would have been very difficult for us to get back the same night to our tent, which in a minuscule way compares with what they did up in the mountains over there.
He writes that it was very painful to turn back there as well, because you guys were very keen to get to the summit, and then when you came back you started arguing and he started complaining about the lack of equipment. What were you arguing about?
That's a good question. You know, both Hari and I had, we were people with the temper. So,
oh, we hadn't noticed. We hadn't noticed. Dangs have tempers, Mr. Singh. Dangs have tempers.
Hari and we both had bad temper. In fact, there's a particular point in the book which I have to correct. There's a time when Hari says that I lost my temper with Hosha Singh, and I dropped my haversack, and he dropped his load, and I chased after him. It wasn't Hosha Singh I was chasing, it was Hari Dang. But this happens, and and I have to say this, that Hari then went on to great things, and I've been through this book, and I never realized what a legend he was. And I would submit to all of his people who he taught and people who were his friends, that you have to read this book to find out what kind of person Hari Dang really was. Because for me, it was a revelation to read this book and say, oh my God, I looked at him, we both said the same age, and both pretty tough, and with absolutely no equipment, 2 ice axes and a nylon rope, that's it. But I would say this to all youngsters and to all alumnus of the schools that he taught. They should buy this book and read it to find out more about what Hari Dang was all about. And I say this with some regret that I never really got to meet him afterwards. And I, for very commercial reasons, went and joined the Imperial Tobacco Company way back in 1955 and missed out on all this. And this is something that I probably regret all my life.
But we won't regret having you on this panel and bringing us back to, after the more serious Everest discussion, to remind us of young Hari Dang and young BP Singh at the age of 18 in the Tons Valley. One last thing, if we can ask you, sir, since this is Stevens College Hiking Club, members are here, introduced to us through Mr. Sudhir Sahi, who is here. Did you have a role in the formation of the hiking club or in its early years? When you came back from Bandarpunch?
This is a question that I hesitate to answer, because yes, there was, I was asked repeatedly whether I would become the secretary of the hiking club to start this hiking club. And I was hesitant to take on a, quote, admin position, because it meant that you then were responsible for all sorts of things that you had to organize and so on. And I said no to it. But I am not entirely sure as to when the hiking club was formed. Or am I imagining this? But it was formed, and I think it became a very active hiking club. And I'm sure, are you guys members of the hiking club? You must not let the fact that you have no equipment stop. But you must always have resources enough that you have enough to eat. And you are physically fit all the time. There is no fun going mountain climbing if you're not physically fit. So my advice to you guys would be, go ahead and do this. Do the best you can, but make sure that you are fit.
Good.
I think 1959, I was invited by the St. Stephen Hiking Club to give a talk on climbing Nanda Kot. So 59 it was existing.
Yes.
Was it
might
there?
have started
You were also there.
Yeah, we had you come for Nanda Kot, I was there, and we had Brigadier Gyan Singh. Brigadier Gyan Singh could
60 Everest.
only 60 Everest. He could only come at 7 in the morning. So I said, how are we going to get an audience at 7 in the morning? He was traveling somewhere. And would you believe it, there were 300 people at the Gyan Singh talk on 60 Everest expedition at 7 in the morning.
Something more to do.
Sorry, yes, please.
I said something on the Jewish quiz earlier. I must say this to you. When we returned to Dehradun, we went back to Mr. Gibson to return the equipment we had borrowed. And we must have been stinking. But as we walked in, Mr. Gibson got up and said, you have the scent of the pine. And then he chatted, and then he said, and this is something, mind you, it's 67 years ago, and then he said, I have some work to do, but there is some refreshment for you here, and you should partake of this. So he went off, and Hari and I walked into the dining room, and on this table, there was a cake, there was cheese, there was ham, there were 3 loaves of bread. You name it, and it was on that.
Marmalade, I'm told marmalade was there. Marmalade and brown bread.
And he and I finished every morsel on that table. And I have never ever sort of forgotten the fact that, as I said, that he was really one of the finest people that I have ever met. And so good luck to those Dune School boys who had him as a master.
Money divided.
So that makes up for the criticism of the Doscos for raising the rates with the porters. On that pleasant note, let's move to Brigadier Ashok Abbey. And the 3 previous speakers had actually walked with and travelled and climbed with Hari Dang. Brigadier Abbey's case is a different case. And we thought that he would help us on this panel for a few reasons. Brigadier Abbey is actually a graduate from the Gurdial School of Mountaineering. He does something very interesting. When you read his articles, you read his writings, he discusses the history, he discusses the pioneers, he discusses the ecology of where he's going, the culture, the language. He does very serious research. And he combines it with the institutional capacity of the army or the Nehru Institute or the Ladakh Scouts or the Dogras or all the NSG recently in Everest this summer. So this combination of his, what I would say, sensitive, almost schoolmasterly mountaineering with all the institutional strength as well has really led him to do some very interesting things. And we thought we should influence him that when his writings come, they may be influenced by towards towards a slant towards the idealistic rather than the institutional. And He has met Hari Dang at various times in Harsil and Uttarkashi, and their conversations would be worth recounting. He immediately reacted to this last chapter, which frankly even I in the book cannot understand very clearly, but it will come over time, called Unclimbing the Mountains. And it has something to do with the fact that we have discovered the world, we've discovered every pass, every valley, every peak, and what is there now for young generations to come. And I think he will have some response to us on that. He's also uniquely positioned that he has visited almost every part of the Indian Himalaya, and I thought I would challenge him to remind us which he likes the most and why. With all that, up to you, Ashok.